Story 1. I've been driving for Uber for 3 years now, ever since my construction company went under during the pandemic. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and gives me flexibility to pick up my kids from school. Most passengers are pretty decent. They get in, tell me where they're going, and we have a pleasant ride. Some even tip well. But every driver has those passengers that make you question why you do this job. It was a Saturday evening around 9 p.m. when I got the pickup request. 5-star rating passenger, which usually means an easy ride. The pickup location was a shopping center on the east side of town, and the destination was an apartment complex about 15 minutes away. I pulled up and saw a woman in her 40s wearing what looked like expensive clothes, tapping her foot impatiently by the curb. She got in the back seat without saying hello. "Karen, finally. Do you know how long I've been waiting?" I checked my phone. I'd arrived exactly 3 minutes after accepting the ride, which is pretty fast. Me, sorry about that. Traffic wasn't too bad getting here. You're heading to Riverside Apartments, right? Karen, yes, but first I need you to go through the McDonald's drive-thru. I'm starving and I need dinner. I've had passengers ask to make quick stops before, and I'm usually okay with it if they're polite about it. But something about her tone put me on edge. Me, I can make a quick stop, but just so you know, waiting time gets added to your fare at about 50 cents per minute. Karen, whatever. Just go to McDonald's. It's right there. I drove over to the McDonald's and got in the drive-thru lane behind 2 other cars. That's when things got weird. Karen, I need you to pay for my food, and I'll pay you back when we get to my apartment. Me, I'm sorry. What? Karen, I don't have my wallet with me. You pay for my food now, and I'll give you cash when we get to my place. Me, ma'am, I can't do that. I'm not supposed to pay for passengers' purchases. Karen, it's just McDonald's. How expensive could it be? I'll tip you extra. Me, it's not about the money. It's against Uber's policies for drivers to make purchases for passengers. Karen, that's ridiculous. You're being paid to drive me around and help me with what I need. We moved up in the drive-thru line, and I could see we were next to order. This was getting uncomfortable fast. Me, ma'am, if you don't have a way to pay for food, I'm going to have to skip the drive-thru and take you straight to your destination. Karen, no, I told you I'm hungry. Just pay for it and stop being difficult. Me, I'm not paying for your food. That's final. She started raising her voice, calling me unprofessional and saying she was going to report me to Uber. The car behind us started honking because we were holding up the line. I pulled out of the drive-thru and headed toward her apartment complex. The entire ride she complained about my customer service, threatened to give me a 1-star rating, and demanded I turn around and go back to get her food. When we arrived at Riverside Apartments, I stopped near the main entrance. Me, here we are. That'll be $12.50 for the ride. Karen, I'm not paying anything. You refused to get me food, so you don't deserve to be paid. Me, ma'am, you still need to pay for the transportation service, regardless of the drive-thru issue. Karen, I said I'm not paying. The ride was terrible, and you were rude to me the entire time. She got out of the car and started walking toward the building. I rolled down the window. Me, ma'am, if you don't pay, I'll have to report this to Uber, and they'll charge your card anyway. Karen, go ahead. I'll dispute the charge and tell them how awful you were. That's when I ended the ride through the app and marked it as a non-payment issue. But instead of going into her building, Karen came storming back to my car. Karen, how dare you end the ride without my permission? I want a refund. Me, the ride is over. Please step away from my vehicle. Karen, I'm not going anywhere until you refund my money. She stood in front of my car, blocking me from leaving. Other residents of the apartment complex started coming outside to see what the commotion was about. Me, ma'am, you need to move. I need to leave. Karen, make me. You stole my money and refused to provide proper service. I called 911 from my cell phone while she continued yelling and pounding on my car hood. She was screaming about fraud, theft, and discrimination, drawing more and more attention from people in the parking lot. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. By then, Karen was going full meltdown mode, crying and claiming I'd robbed her and left her stranded without food. Officer 1. Ma'am, can you calm down and explain what happened? Karen. This driver stole my money and refused to get me dinner. He's a criminal. I showed the officers my phone with the Uber trip details, explained the drive-through situation, and told them about her refusal to pay the fare. Officer 2. Sir, do you want to press charges for the unpaid fare? Me. I just want to leave. Uber will handle the payment dispute. Officer 1. Ma'am, you need to stop blocking this gentleman's vehicle and calm down, or we're going to have to arrest you for disorderly conduct. Karen. Arrest me? I'm the victim here. He's the one who should be arrested. But she kept screaming and refused to move away from my car. After several more warnings, they placed her in handcuffs. As they put her in the police car, she was still yelling about lawsuits and how she was going to destroy my Uber rating. Uber sided with me on the payment dispute and even gave me a small bonus for dealing with a difficult passenger. Karen's account was apparently suspended after multiple similar incidents with other drivers. I still drive for Uber, but now I'm a lot more careful about passengers who want to make stops. Story 2. I moved to Oak Ridge 5 years ago after my husband passed away. The house was perfect for starting over, small enough to manage on my own, but in a neighborhood where I felt safe. I work as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling 12-hour shifts 3 days a week. Money's always tight on a single income, so I try to save wherever I can. One way I cut costs is by air drying my laundry instead of using the dryer. My backyard has a perfect spot for a clothesline between 2 oak trees. I installed it myself the first month I lived here, making sure it wasn't visible from the street and checking the homeowners association rules to make sure outdoor drying was allowed. The rules were clear: clotheslines were permitted as long as they weren't visible from public roads and laundry wasn't left out overnight. My setup was completely in the backyard, blocked by my house and fence. Perfect. For 4 years, nobody cared about my laundry routine. I'd hang clothes out in the morning before work and bring them in when I got home. My next-door neighbors never mentioned it, and the elderly couple behind me actually complimented my old-fashioned approach to saving money. Everything changed when Karen moved into the house across the street last spring. She was probably in her 50s, always dressed like she was heading to some country club meeting. Her husband drove a luxury car, and their lawn looked like it belonged in a magazine. She clearly had different standards than the rest of us. I first noticed her taking pictures over my back fence while I was hanging up scrubs after a particularly long shift at the hospital. Karen, excuse me, is that your laundry hanging back there? Me, yes, I was just finishing up. Is there a problem? Karen, well, it's quite visible from certain angles. It really affects the aesthetic of the neighborhood. Me, it's completely in my backyard. The homeowners association rules allow clotheslines as long as they're not visible from the street. Karen, rules aside, don't you think it makes the block look a bit poor? Me, I'm sorry, what? Karen, most people use dryers these days. Hanging laundry outside gives off a certain impression about the neighborhood's income level. Me, I prefer air drying. It saves money and it's better for the environment. Karen, I see. Well, I hope you'll consider how it affects everyone's property values. She walked away, still taking pictures with her phone. I was annoyed but figured that was the end of it. 2 weeks later, I got a formal letter from the homeowners association. Someone had filed a complaint about unsightly laundry displays affecting neighborhood standards. The letter asked me to respond within 10 days about the alleged violation. I called the association president immediately. President, we received a complaint about clotheslines visible from neighboring properties. Me, my clothesline is in my backyard. I specifically checked the rules before installing it. President, can you send us photos showing the setup? We need to investigate all complaints. I took pictures from every angle, showing that the clothesline was completely hidden from the street and only barely visible from one corner of Karen's yard if you stood on a chair and looked over the fence. The president called me back the next day. President, your setup is completely compliant with our rules. The complaint has been dismissed. Me, thank you. Can you tell me who filed the complaint? President, I can't give names, but I can tell you this person has filed several complaints recently about various properties. I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next month, I received 3 more complaints. Each time, the association investigated and found no violations. Karen had somehow convinced herself that my completely legal clothesline was a major neighborhood problem. The complaints got more creative. First, she claimed my laundry was visible from the street during certain weather conditions. Then she said it was attracting insects that disturb neighboring properties. The last one claimed my clothesline was creating noise pollution from flapping fabric. Each complaint required investigation time and paperwork from the volunteer board members. I started feeling guilty that my simple clothesline was causing so much administrative work. The breaking point came in July. I was bringing in laundry after work when Karen marched over with her phone out, filming everything. Karen, I'm documenting another violation for the Homeowners Association. Me, there's no violation. The board has already confirmed that multiple times. Karen, your laundry display is affecting my property enjoyment and neighborhood values. Me, Karen, my clothesline is legal. The board has investigated your complaints and found no problems. Karen, then the board isn't doing their job properly. Someone needs to maintain standards around here. Me, the only standard being violated is your harassment of neighbors over legal activities. Karen, I'm not harassing anyone. I'm protecting our community's reputation. She stormed off, probably to file another complaint. The next board meeting was scheduled for the following week. I decided to attend and address the situation directly. The meeting was in the community center, with about 15 residents present. Karen sat in the front row with a thick folder of materials. President, we have several items on tonight's agenda, including ongoing concerns about property compliance. Karen stood up immediately. Karen, I'd like to address the continued violations regarding inappropriate laundry displays that are affecting our neighborhood's appearance and property values. Board member, ma'am, we've investigated those complaints multiple times. The clothesline in question is completely compliant with our rules. Karen, then the rules need to be changed. Having laundry hanging outside makes our neighborhood look like a low-income area. Me, excuse me, can I respond to that? President, of course. Me, I'm the person with the clothesline. I'm a registered nurse who works at the hospital. I air dry my clothes to save money and reduce my environmental impact. There's nothing low-income or inappropriate about that. Neighbor, I've never even noticed her laundry. How is it affecting anyone? Karen, it's visible from my property and it affects the overall aesthetic we're trying to maintain. Board member, Karen, you've filed 6 complaints about this clothesline in 2 months. Each investigation has confirmed it's legal and properly located. Karen, someone needs to take action to protect our neighborhood standards. President, actually, Karen, we need to discuss your complaint pattern. According to our records, you've filed 23 complaints in 3 months about various properties. Karen, I'm just more observant than other residents about maintaining proper standards. President, the problem is that excessive complaints can constitute harassment under our community guidelines. Karen, how is it harassment to report violations? Board member, when you repeatedly file complaints about legal activities, it becomes harassment of your neighbors and a waste of board resources. President, Karen, I need to inform you that your complaint frequency has exceeded our guidelines for reasonable community participation. Karen, are you trying to silence legitimate concerns about neighborhood standards? President, We're trying to protect residents from harassment. Your complaints about the clothesline have been investigated and dismissed multiple times. Me. She's also been taking pictures over my fence and confronting me in my own yard about legal activities. Board member, that definitely constitutes harassment. President, Karen, effective immediately. We're implementing a complaint limit for your property. You're restricted to 1 complaint per month, and it must include substantial evidence of actual rule violations. Karen, this is ridiculous. You're protecting someone who's lowering our property values. President, actually, Karen, your harassment of neighbors is more likely to affect property values than someone legally air-drying laundry in their backyard. Karen, I demand you reconsider this decision. Board member, the board has voted. The restriction stands. Karen gathered her materials and stormed out, muttering about incompetent leadership and declining neighborhood standards. After the meeting, several neighbors approached me to apologize for Karen's behavior and express support for my right to use my clothesline. Neighbor, I had no idea she was harassing you about laundry. That's completely ridiculous. Another neighbor, I'm thinking of installing a clothesline myself. It's a great way to save money. Karen's complaints stopped immediately after the board restriction. She still takes pictures around the neighborhood, but she can't flood the board with frivolous reports anymore. Last month, I saw a "for sale" sign in Karen's yard. Her husband mentioned to a neighbor that they were moving to a community with stricter aesthetic standards. I still hang my laundry on sunny days, and now I've inspired 3 other neighbors to install clotheslines too. Sometimes I see them out there hanging up clothes and saving money, just like people have done for generations. The neighborhood feels more relaxed without Karen's constant surveillance and complaints. My simple clothesline became a symbol of the right to live peacefully in your own home without harassment from entitled neighbors who think their preferences should become everyone else's rules. Story 3. I've been working at Palace Theaters for 3 years now, starting when I was 21 and fresh out of community college. My official title is assistant manager, which basically means I handle everything from scheduling staff to dealing with difficult customers. We get all kinds of people, but nothing prepared me for what happened during our special sing-along screening last month. We were showing a classic Broadway musical, one of those beloved productions that everyone knows the songs to. The theater had advertised it as a sing-along event where audience participation was encouraged. People could hum along, tap their feet, maybe sing quietly with the characters. It was supposed to be a fun, interactive experience for musical theater fans. About 20 minutes before showtime, I noticed this woman setting up what looked like a small sound system in the lobby. She had a portable speaker, a wireless microphone, and was doing vocal warm-ups that echoed through the entire concession area. Excuse me, ma'am, what's all this equipment for? Karen, oh, this is for the sing-along. I'm a trained vocalist. I thought I'd help everyone really enjoy the music tonight. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but the sing-along is more about casual audience participation. You can't bring your own sound equipment into the theater. Karen, why not? I have a music degree and 15 years of choir experience. I'll make this so much better for everyone. I'm sure you're very talented, but we can't allow personal amplification systems. It would disturb other customers. Karen, don't worry, I know all the harmonies. I'll enhance the experience, not ruin it. I explained our policy about outside equipment, but she kept insisting that her musical background made this different. Finally, I had to be firm. Ma'am, you cannot bring that speaker into the theater. You're welcome to sing along quietly like everyone else. She seemed to accept this and packed up most of her equipment. I thought the problem was solved, but I should have watched more carefully. The movie started, and for the first few songs, everything was normal. People were singing softly, enjoying themselves, and the atmosphere was exactly what we'd hoped for. Then came the first big musical number, and suddenly this woman's voice boomed through the entire theater. She had somehow smuggled in a smaller speaker, and was belting out every note at full volume, completely drowning out the movie's soundtrack. But here's the thing, she was absolutely terrible. Off-key, wrong timing, and so loud that you couldn't hear the actual performers on screen. The audience reaction was immediate. People started shushing her, but she just sang louder. During what should have been a beautiful romantic duet, her screeching voice made it sound like a comedy sketch. Random man, lady, turn that thing off. Karen, I'm helping everyone enjoy the music better. Random woman, you're ruining the entire movie. She ignored every complaint and kept going. During the next song, she was practically screaming into her microphone, doing elaborate runs and vocal flourishes that had nothing to do with the actual melody. I rushed into the theater and found her standing in the aisle, microphone in hand, performing like she was on stage at Carnegie Hall instead of disrupting a movie screening. Ma'am, you need to turn that off immediately and sit down. Karen, I'm just getting to the good part. Listen to this high note. She attempted some kind of operatic trill that sounded like a fire alarm going off. Half the audience was laughing, but not in a good way. You're disturbing everyone. Turn off the microphone now. Karen, these people don't appreciate real talent when they hear it. That's when I noticed she had attracted the attention of our security guard. He was already walking down the aisle toward us. Security guard, ma'am, you need to leave the theater. Karen, I'm not done with my performance. Security guard, yes, you are. Come with me. She actually tried to keep singing as security escorted her out, dragging the speaker behind her. The entire audience burst into applause and cheering, not for her performance, but for her removal. One elderly gentleman called out, "Thank goodness, I thought someone was torturing a cat in here." After she was gone, the mood completely changed. People were laughing about what had just happened and actually enjoying the rest of the movie. Several customers came up to me afterward to thank me for handling the situation quickly. The best part was that she left her equipment behind in her dramatic exit. We held it in our lost and found for the required 30 days, but she never came back to claim it. My manager later told me that she had tried to argue with security in the lobby, claiming she was providing a valuable service and that people just didn't understand good music. Apparently, she demanded a refund and threatened to post negative reviews about how we stifle artistic expression. She never did get that refund, but I'm sure she found somewhere else to inflict her talents on unsuspecting audiences. Story 4. I've been working at this accounting firm for about 3 years now. It's a decent job, nothing fancy, but it pays the bills and my coworkers are mostly nice people. Well, most of them anyway. I should probably explain my situation first. I have fibromyalgia, which is an invisible disability that causes chronic pain and fatigue. Some days are better than others, but on bad days, even simple tasks can be exhausting. My doctor recommended I take short breaks throughout the day to help manage my symptoms, and my manager was really understanding about it. Human Resources documented everything properly, and I have all the accommodations I need under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The thing about invisible disabilities is that people can't see them. I don't use a wheelchair or crutches, so I look perfectly healthy from the outside. Most days I can hide the pain pretty well because I've gotten good at it over the years. But apparently, that was a problem for one particular coworker. Karen had been with the company for about 5 years and thought that gave her some kind of authority over everyone else. She was the type of person who always had something to say about everything, and it was rarely pleasant. I tried to stay out of her way, but our desks were in the same area, so avoiding her completely wasn't possible. It started small. I'd get up to take one of my prescribed breaks, and I'd catch her rolling her eyes or making faces. Then she started making little comments under her breath. "Karen, some people have it so easy around here." I ignored it at first, hoping she'd get bored and move on to bothering someone else. But Karen wasn't the type to let things go. The comments got louder and more frequent. Whenever I'd get up to stretch or take a short walk around the building, she'd make sure everyone could hear her. "Karen, must be nice to get paid vacation time every hour." Karen, I wish I could just walk around whenever I felt like it. Karen, some people really know how to work the system. My other coworkers started noticing. A few of them knew about my condition because I'd mentioned it in casual conversation, but others didn't. I could see them looking confused, probably wondering what Karen was talking about. One day, about 2 months ago, things came to a head. I was having a particularly rough morning. The pain was worse than usual, and I was feeling pretty exhausted, even though the day had just started. I decided to take a quick break and went to the break room to sit down for a few minutes. Karen followed me. Karen, I've been watching you for months now. Me, excuse me? Karen, all these little breaks you take, walking around, sitting in here doing nothing. Do you think we're all stupid? Me, I don't know what you're talking about. Karen, oh please. You're obviously faking whatever this is. You look perfectly fine to me. I've seen you carry heavy boxes. I've seen you run to catch the elevator. But somehow you need special treatment. Me, I have a medical condition that's been documented with human resources. My breaks are approved accommodations. Karen, right, your mysterious condition that nobody can see. How convenient. You know what I think? I think you're just lazy and found a way to get out of doing real work. She was getting louder, and I could see other people in the hallway starting to look our way. I felt my face getting hot with embarrassment and anger. Karen, people like you make me sick. Taking advantage of real disabilities to slack off. There are people out there with actual problems, and you're here pretending to be sick for attention. Me, you don't know anything about my medical situation. Karen, I know enough. I know you're a faker and a liar, and I'm tired of watching you get special treatment while the rest of us do actual work. That's when our supervisor walked by and heard the commotion. Supervisor, is everything okay here? Karen, I was just pointing out that some people around here seem to think they deserve special privileges. Me, she's been harassing me about my medical accommodations. Supervisor, Karen, can I see you in my office, please? Karen, this is ridiculous. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. The supervisor looked uncomfortable and glanced at me apologetically before leading Karen away. I sat there shaking, partly from anger and partly because confrontation always makes my symptoms worse. I knew I had to report this officially. It wasn't the first time Karen had made comments, and I was tired of feeling uncomfortable at my own workplace. I went straight to Human Resources and filed a formal complaint. The Human Resources representative was very professional and took detailed notes of everything. They said they'd investigate thoroughly and get back to me within a week. Human Resources representative, we take these matters very seriously. No employee should feel harassed or discriminated against because of their medical conditions. True to their word, Human Resources completed their investigation within 5 business days. They interviewed several coworkers who had witnessed Karen's behavior, and apparently, she didn't deny making the comments when they confronted her about it. Karen was called into a meeting with Human Resources and our supervisor. From what I heard through the grapevine, she was given 2 choices: complete mandatory sensitivity training about disabilities and workplace harassment, or be terminated immediately. I thought that would be the end of it. The training seemed like a reasonable solution, and maybe Karen would finally understand why her behavior was wrong. But Karen had other plans. The next morning, I came into work to find out that Karen had quit. She'd sent an email to our supervisor late the night before, saying she refused to be forced into ridiculous training for telling the truth. I figured that was that. Problem solved, right, wrong. About a week later, one of my coworkers showed me Karen's Facebook post. She'd written this long rant about how she'd been forced out of her job for speaking up about workplace fraud. She claimed I was faking my disability to get special treatment, and that the company was too scared of lawsuits to do anything about it. Karen's Facebook post, "Can't believe I lost my job for telling the truth about a coworker who's obviously faking a disability for attention. This company would rather protect lazy employees than hard-working ones. So disappointed in how backwards everything is these days." I was mortified. Even though she didn't use my name, anyone who knew us both could figure out who she was talking about. I worried that people would believe her version of events. But here's where the story gets satisfying. The comments on her post were not what she was expecting. Instead of sympathy and support, person after person called her out. One comment: "This sounds like workplace harassment. Maybe you should have minded your own business." Another comment: "You do realize invisible disabilities are real, right? Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there." Someone else wrote, "I can't believe you're publicly complaining about getting in trouble for making fun of someone's medical condition. That's awful." Even her own family members were disagreeing with her in the comments. Her sister wrote, "I'm disappointed in you. This isn't the person I thought you were." Her mother commented, "You need to think about how your words affect other people before you speak." The post kept getting more negative responses throughout the day. People were sharing articles about invisible disabilities, explaining why her behavior was wrong, and generally not giving her the validation she was looking for. By the end of the week, Karen had deleted the post entirely, but screenshots had already been taken and shared, so the damage to her reputation was done. A few months later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Karen was having trouble finding new employment. Apparently, word had gotten around in our industry about why she'd left her previous job. Our field is smaller than people think, and hiring managers talk to each other. Meanwhile, I'm still working at the same company. My accommodations continue to be respected, and my coworkers are more supportive than ever. Several of them apologized for not speaking up sooner when they witnessed Karen's behavior. The whole experience taught me the importance of advocating for myself and not just hoping problems will go away on their own. It also showed me that most people are decent and understanding when they know the facts. Karen thought she could bully me into giving up my legitimate accommodations, but instead she ended up destroying her own career and reputation. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting entitled people face the natural consequences of their actions. Story 5. I'm a single dad with twin boys who are 9 years old. After their mom and I divorced 2 years ago, I bought a small house with a decent front yard so the boys would have space to play when they're with me every other weekend. It's not a huge lawn, but it's big enough for them to throw a baseball or kick a soccer ball around. Both my boys love sports, especially baseball. They're on the same little league team and spend hours practicing their throwing and catching. Since I work long hours during the week as an electrician, weekends are really our main time to hang out and do stuff together. Playing catch in the yard has become one of our regular Saturday morning activities. The house next door has been occupied by the same woman for about 15 years according to other neighbors. She lives alone and keeps to herself mostly. Her yard is perfectly maintained with not a single weed or leaf out of place. She's never been particularly friendly, but she's never caused problems either. That changed 3 weeks ago when we were having our usual Saturday morning catch session. It was around 10 a.m., and the boys were practicing throwing pop flies. They were being pretty careful to keep the ball in our yard and not throw it too hard near the property line. We'd been out there maybe 20 minutes when my neighbor came stomping across her lawn toward us. "Karen, excuse me. This noise has got to stop." "Me, what noise?" "Karen, all this yelling and ball throwing. It's way too loud for the weekend." I looked around confused. The boys weren't yelling, they were just calling out normal stuff like "good catch" and "throw it here." "Me, we're just playing catch. It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday." "Karen, I don't care what time it is. Some people want peace and quiet on weekends." My boys had stopped throwing and were just standing there looking uncomfortable. "Me, they're playing on our own lawn. We're not bothering anyone." "Karen, you're bothering me. All that shouting and the sound of that ball hitting their gloves is disruptive." I couldn't believe she was complaining about the sound of a baseball hitting a glove. "Me, kids play outside on weekends. That's what kids do." "Karen, not in my neighborhood. I moved here for the quiet, and I shouldn't have to listen to all this racket." She turned to my boys directly. Karen, you two need to find somewhere else to play your loud games. This is a residential area, not a playground. That's when I started getting angry. It's one thing to complain to me, but yelling at my kids was crossing a line. Me, don't talk to my children like that. They're not doing anything wrong. Karen, they're being disruptive and inconsiderate. Children should be taught to respect their neighbors. Me, they are being respectful. We're playing on our own property during normal daytime hours. Karen, well, it's too noisy, and I want it to stop right now. At this point, another neighbor from across the street had noticed the commotion and came over. She's a mom with 3 kids of her own, and I'd seen her boys playing with mine a few times. Other mom, what's going on here? Karen, these children are making too much noise playing in their yard. It's disturbing the peace. Other mom, they're playing catch. On a Saturday morning. On their own lawn. Karen, it doesn't matter. It's too loud for a weekend. Other mom, are you serious right now? You're complaining about kids playing catch? Karen, yes I am. Some of us value peace and quiet. Other mom, it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Kids are supposed to play outside. That's normal childhood behavior. Karen, I don't care what's normal. I shouldn't have to listen to it. The other mom looked at her like she was crazy. Other mom, lady, you live in a family neighborhood. Kids play outside here. If you want complete silence, maybe you should move to a retirement community. Karen, I have every right to enjoy my property without noise pollution from screaming children. Other mom, they're not screaming. They're playing. Maybe instead of policing other people's yards, you should focus on your own business. Karen, this is my business when it affects me. Other mom, no, it's not. They're not on your property, they're not damaging anything, and they're not doing anything inappropriate. You need to mind your own yard and let these kids be kids. Karen looked like she was about to explode. Karen, I'm calling the police about this noise complaint. Other mom, go ahead. They'll tell you the same thing we're telling you. Kids playing catch at 10 a.m. on Saturday isn't a crime. Karen, we'll see about that. She stormed back to her house and slammed her front door. Other mom, don't let her get to you. Your boys aren't doing anything wrong. Me, thanks for backing us up. I couldn't believe she was yelling at them like that. Other mom, some people just can't stand seeing kids having fun. My kids play outside every weekend, and she's never said anything to us. But maybe that's because there are 3 of them, and I'm not as patient as you are. We never did see any police show up, which wasn't surprising. The boys were pretty shaken up by the whole thing though. Son 1, Dad, are we really being too loud? Me, no buddy, you're not. She's just grumpy and doesn't like kids having fun. Son 2, can we still play catch next weekend? Me, absolutely. This is our yard, and you have every right to play here. The next Saturday, we were back out there for our usual catch session. I noticed my neighbor looking out her window several times, but she didn't come outside. The mom from across the street waved at us and gave us a thumbs up. We've been playing catch every weekend since then without any more complaints. I think she realized that other neighbors weren't going to support her ridiculous demands for complete silence during normal daytime hours on weekends. My boys are back to enjoying their Saturday morning catch sessions, and I'm glad we didn't let one grumpy neighbor ruin something that's become such an important part of our weekend routine together.